The sound hit like a gunshot. One sharp crack that sent shock through the steel walls of the armory. Colonel Marcus R. Harlow's hand had just connected with Lieutenant Elena Ward's face, the kind of blow that leaves silence behind it. The hum of the overhead lights flickered once, then steadied for 3 full seconds. Nobody breathed. "You think rank makes you bulletproof," he said, voice low and soaked in disdain. "Out here, you earn respect by standing your ground, not by hiding behind policy." 3 NCOs, Sergeants Rook, Cade, and Chu stood near the weapons rack. None of them spoke. Rook's smirk twitched. Cade stared at the floor. Chu looked at Ward, then quickly away. It wasn't the first time they'd seen a line crossed in this room. It was just the first time it might cost them everything. Ward didn't move. The slap's red mark was already rising on her cheek, but her voice stayed steady. Permission to speak freely. Sir Harlow snorted. "By all means. Let's see if the academy taught you anything useful." She straightened her posture, hands clasped behind her back. The sunlight bleeding through the high windows caught the edge of her face, one half lit, one half shadowed. "I understand my position clearly." "Sir?" "Good," he said. "Then you understand how this works." The camera of the base's internal CCTV caught the reflection of his gesture, the curl of his hand, the mockery in his stance. But Ward didn't flinch. She looked at him the way a surgeon looks at an infection, not with anger, but with certainty. Outside, the desert wind pressed against the hangar doors. A faint hum carried through the air, the distant rhythm of rotor blades. Routine. At first, just background noise. Inside, the tension pressed tighter. "You want to know the difference between officers who last and officers who quit?" Harlow stepped closer. His breath smelled of old coffee, an authority left unchecked. "The ones who last learn when to stay quiet." Ward's watch vibrated once against her wrist. She glanced down barely and tapped the screen twice. A soft click followed, swallowed by the still air. No one noticed. "Understood, sir," she said. Her tone smooth as glass. "Completely." Harlow smiled, thinking he'd broken her. "That's the spirit. Maybe you're not as fragile as you look." Then her phone buzzed. Once, twice, 3 times. Same tone, same pattern. She didn't answer. Cade muttered. "Someone's desperate." Under his breath, Harlow sneered. "Go ahead. Lieutenant, pick up. Maybe Daddy's calling to complain." Ward reached into her pocket and placed the phone face up on the steel table. The name on the screen wasn't a person. It was a call sign. Raven Actual Secure Channel. The laughter died instantly. Ward looked at Harlow. Her voice was calm, deadly calm. "You have less than 2 minutes before the chain of command reaches you. I suggest you use them wisely." He blinked. "What the hell does that mean?" She didn't answer. Just straightened, eyes locked on the far wall like she was listening to something beyond it. Outside, the sound of rotors grew louder, no longer routine, but purposeful, heavy, close. The dust on the window panes began to tremble. Harlow turned toward the sound, frowning. "That better not be another training op." Ward's gaze didn't waver. "Respect is earned, Colonel," she said quietly. Her voice was ice, but accountability, that lands from above. Outside, the first Black Hawk came over the ridge. The armory lights flickered again. A camera in the corner caught Harlow's face, a moment frozen in disbelief. The wind roared through the vents. "Where are you watching from?" "Soldier, because what happens next changes everything." Subscribe to stories. Unseen, stay in the fight. The armory swallowed the sound of the approaching rotors, turning it into a low vibration that ran through the concrete floor like a heartbeat. Colonel Harlow's voice cut through it sharp, defensive. You trying to scare me with theatrics. Lieutenant 2 helicopters on a routine-based day don't mean a damn thing. Ward didn't move. She was still standing at attention. Chin high, eyes fixed straight ahead. Her phone, still on the table, buzzed once more. The screen flashed, "Link established, Raven secure." Rook frowned. "Sir, that's quiet," Harlow barked, without looking at him. "She's bluffing. No one calls Raven actual without authorization from Division Command." He turned back toward Ward, smirking. "And you sure as hell don't have it." Ward didn't blink. The authorization wasn't mine to give. "Sir," it was theirs to confirm. Her tone wasn't defiant. It was matter-of-fact, too calm, too precise, the kind of voice that meant she wasn't guessing. Cade shifted uneasily, glancing toward the small glass window high on the wall. The reflection of rotors flickered there too. Maybe 3 birds. Running silent approach protocols, not a training flight. Chu's hand brushed his belt unconsciously. "Sir, command's not scheduled for inspection today." "Right," Harlow ignored him, pacing like a wolf in a cage. "Lieutenant Ward, you better start explaining who the hell's on that frequency." Ward tapped the screen once. The line icon blinked green. "Raven Control. This is Ward. I have visual on primary subject. Situation proceeding as predicted." A pause. A filtered voice responded. Female. "Cold. Professional. Copy." Glasshouse confirmed. "Continue observation. All units 2 mics inbound." The line went dead. Rook took a slow step backward. "She's talking to Glasshouse. That's joint task." "Sir, that's enough," Harlow snapped. But the edge of confidence in his tone cracked. Ward's eyes met his, not angry, but clinical, dissecting him like a field report. "Sir, I recommend you stand down before this becomes part of record." "Record," he repeated, laughing harshly. "You think some phantom task force scares me? You're an officer in my command." He grabbed the phone off the table, staring at it, but the screen had already gone black, locked, at the top corner. A small red indicator flashed once, REC 0241. He froze. "You're recording this." Ward's voice didn't change. "The system is..." "For the first time." The colonel's face shifted, not from guilt, but from dawning realization. The hum of the rotors was now distinct, the rhythm of UH-60 Black Hawks closing in from the western perimeter. "Not training, not routine," Rook whispered. "Sir, they're landing." Harlow rounded on him. "Nobody moves. Nobody says a word until the armory lights flickered." And a voice came over the intercom, the clipped authority of Base Ops Command. "Attention all personnel. Hold position. Incoming JTF inspection detail. Code designation Glasshouse. Level clearance immediate." Cade exhaled sharply. Chu took a step back toward the racks. Nobody spoke. Harlow stared at Ward like the walls had betrayed him. "You set me up," he said, voice almost trembling with disbelief. Ward's reply was quiet. "No, sir. You set your own trap. I just kept the lights on long enough for them to see it." The door alarm buzzed once, long and mechanical. Then came the heavy sound of boots outside. Moving in formation, Harlow's hand went instinctively to his sidearm. Chu whispered, "Sir, don't." Ward turned slightly, her reflection visible in the polished steel of the locker door. Her eyes met the camera above the doorway, as if acknowledging it. The red indicator light blinked back, still recording. Outside, a voice called over the Wind Raven flight. "Confirm lockdown perimeter secure." "Copy. All sectors green." The last thing Harlow saw before the door handle turned was Ward's calm expression, the face of someone who already knew what was coming. The steel door shuddered once, then opened. Cold, desert air rolled into the armory. carrying the whine of idling Black Hawks and the smell of jet fuel. 3 figures stepped inside, not a crowd, not chaos, just authority, contained and absolute. At the front, Brigadier General Aaron Keaton, commander of Joint Task Force Glasshouse. Flanking him were Colonel Strauss, CID Chief Investigator, and Commander Varga, Judge Advocate from JAG Corps. No words, no salutes, only purpose. Harlow froze mid-stride. His voice came out brittle. "General, sir, I wasn't informed of any inspection." Keaton's gaze swept the room, once taking in the overturned chair. The silence, the blood on Ward's lip. When he spoke, the tone could have cracked glass. "You weren't supposed to be." Ward stood at rigid attention. "Lieutenant Ward, reporting as directed." "Sir." Keaton's jaw tightened. "Colonel Ward," he corrected quietly. The word hit harder than any bullet. Every man in the room went still. Cade swallowed hard. "Colonel," Chu muttered. "Holy," then stopped himself, realizing microphones were still live. Strauss pulled a small device from her coat, a matte black uplink node. She placed it on the table beside Ward's phone. Its light pulsed green, then blue. Recording sequence complete. Visual, audio, telemetry, all feeds encrypted to Glasshouse mainframe. Harlow's throat worked, but no sound came. He tried to reassert control. "Sir, there's been a misunderstanding. This officer assaulted protocol, and I corrected her with improper." Varga's voice cut across his. "You struck a federal investigator operating under direct joint task authorization." No volume, no anger, just surgical precision. Harlow's words faltered. The realization hit like recoil. Every camera, every microphone in this armory was part of something he'd never been briefed on. He looked around as if seeing the room for the first time. The reflection of his own face stared back from a steel locker, smaller, older, uncertain. Keaton stepped closer until they stood a meter apart. 23 years of command. "Colonel, and this is what it looks like when the chain of accountability catches up." He turned slightly toward Ward. "Lieutenant, correction." "Colonel Ward." Was the signal confirmed? Ward replied crisply, "Yes, sir. Operation Glasshouse parameters met. Subject displayed pattern, consistent with predictive model. Documentation complete." Keaton nodded. "Once. Good work." That phrase, "good work," landed like a hammer. Rook actually stepped backward, as if physical force had hit him. Strauss's voice was cool as metal. "Mark the evidence channel, Alpha 9. All participants present are now classified witnesses pending UCMJ Article 15-6 proceedings." Cade's face had gone pale. Chu just whispered, "Sir, what's going to happen to us?" Keaton's reply was even, "That depends on whether you tell the truth from this moment forward." Harlow clenched his fists, the veins in his hands standing out like cables. "You're making a spectacle out of nothing. This is a witch hunt." Varga didn't even look at him. "No, Colonel. This is documentation catching up to behavior. There's a difference." The silence that followed was louder than any rotor outside. Through the open doorway, the wash of helicopter blades painted the walls with shifting light. Every flash made the scene look like fragments of an old film proof already being archived. Keaton turned toward Ward. "You'll be debriefed at Fort Irwin within 48 hours. The Inspector General will conduct review." Ward nodded. "Understood. All data uplinked to Glasshouse Core. Redundancy verified." Strauss pocketed the uplink device and gave a short nod toward the MPs entering behind them. "Proceed." 2 MPs approached Harlow. For a heartbeat, he looked like he might resist the reflex of a man who'd lived too long on top of the chain. Then the strength left his shoulders. He didn't fight when they took his sidearm. He just whispered, mostly to himself, "All I ever did was enforce discipline. Ward's voice answered, barely above the rotor's thrum. "That's what everyone says. Sir, right before we learn what it really means." Harlow looked up. For a moment. Something almost human flickered there, not remorse, not guilt, but the hollow shock of someone who finally saw the pattern he'd built around himself. The MPs led him toward the door. The light from outside framed his silhouette like the edge of a closing file. He turned once, trying to say something, maybe to justify, maybe to warn, but the sound of the rotors swallowed it. Keaton gave a single command. "Seal the perimeter." Outside, dust rose in sheets across the runway. Blackhawks waited, their engines idling in perfect sync, a choreography of power. Ward exhaled for the first time in minutes. She reached to her collar, unclipping the subdued rank insignia. The brass eagles glinted once in the light, no triumph, no pride, just confirmation, from somewhere behind her. The recorder light blinked red one final time, then faded to black. The echo of the rotors faded first, then came the quiet, that heavy, sterile quiet that only follows shock. The armory was sealed now. The air smelled like gun oil and paperwork. Brigadier General Keaton stood beside the steel table, the uplink device blinking steady blue, the color of Finalization. Two CID officers boxed the recorder into a black evidence case, stamped Glass House Node, sealed. Commander Varga from JAG watched them sign the chain of custody forms. His tone clipped and exact. Visual, audio, metadata. Chain confirmed. Package secured for Inspector General review. No one spoke. No one dared. Colonel Harlow sat on a bench against the wall, wrists bound. His face was pale but composed, the kind of composure built from decades of authority and stripped away in minutes. "Colonel," said Varga, stepping forward, "you are now advised of your rights under Article 31B of the Uniform Code of Military Justice." His voice was even, almost rehearsed. "You have the right to remain silent. You have the right to consult with counsel prior to any statement. Any statement you make may be used as evidence against you. Do you understand these rights as I have read them to you?" Harlow's reply was low, mechanical, understood. Keaton nodded once to the MPs. "Proceed." Ward stood nearby, silent. The rank insignia she had unpinned earlier lay on the table, still glinting in the fluorescent light. In the corner. Sergeant Chu leaned against the wall, expression unreadable, hands clasped tight. He hadn't spoken since the generals arrived, maybe because there was nothing left to say. Colonel Strauss finished signing the final report on her tablet, all evidence transferred to Glasshouse Core. Redundancy upload complete. IG office has full access. Keaton exhaled. Slow and heavy. That's it. Then, the MPs guided Harlow to his feet. He didn't resist. When they moved him past Ward, he hesitated, a flicker of something almost human in his eyes. "You knew this was coming," he said quietly. "All of it." Ward's reply was calm, but her voice carried the fatigue of months spent under cover. "Yes. Sir, I just didn't know how long it would take for you to notice the mirror." Harlow gave a faint, bitter laugh, half disbelief, half surrender. "Glass house," he muttered. "You built a whole damn operation around me." "No, sir," she said. "Around the pattern." He didn't ask what she meant. He just nodded once, as if finally understanding the scale of the machine that had been waiting for him. The MPs let him out. The sound of the locking door echoed like punctuation. When the last click faded, Keaton spoke softly, "Record the armory clear." Strauss tapped her pad. Armory clear. Witness log Ward. Chu, Strauss, Varga, Keaton. A light on the wall camera turned from red to green, the final mark of a complete record. Ward let her posture relax for the first time in hours. Her eyes drifted to the corner where the case had sat, the one with the word Raven etched in white. It was gone now. Boxed, labeled, archived. History contained in carbon fiber. Varja broke the silence. You did well, Colonel. No theatrics. Clean extraction. The IG's going to have enough to rewrite the book on internal accountability. Ward didn't look at him. Her voice was quiet. Books don't change people. They just remind them they were warned. Keaton turned toward her. Then warn them again. The sound of a new rotor echoed from the flight line, not incoming, just repositioning. The light outside had shifted to that soft amber hour when desert turns to gold. For a moment, it didn't feel like victory, just aftermath. Chu finally spoke, voice low. Ma'am, what happens now? Ward looked at him, the faintest trace of weariness in her eyes. Now the paperwork, the silence, and then something else starts. Keaton studied her for a beat, then extended a sealed envelope. It already has. Orders from Joint Command Operation Mirror Fall. She took it, the wax seal catching the light. Same disease. Keaton added quietly. Different host. Ward's gaze lingered on the insignia stamped in red, a broken mirror divided by a single line. Her reflection shimmered across its surface before fading. She slipped the envelope into her jacket. Outside, the wind kicked up again, carrying dust across the tarmac like smoke from an unseen fire. No applause. No noise, just the machinery of accountability resetting itself. The door closed behind her with a sound that wasn't quite final, just the pause before the next mission. The corridor beyond the armory was all glass and silence. Dust hung in the air, tinted orange by the desert sun. At the far end, 2 CID MPs escorted Colonel Marcus Harlow toward the landing pad. It wasn't a parade. No formation, no spectacle, only stillness. Across the quad, soldiers stood at attention, eyes forward, hands at their sides. They didn't look, but everyone knew. The Black Hawks waited with engines on standby, their rotors ticking lazily in the heat. The air shimmered around them like a mirage. When Harlow passed the hangar, he slowed for half a step, the name Kul M. Jia. Harlow, commanding officer, still stenciled above the door. It would be painted over by noon. Brigadier General Keaton and Colonel Strauss watched from the catwalk. CID transport secure. Strauss said, Convoy sealed for Fort Bragg processing. Keaton gave a single nod. No press, no broadcast, no rumor mill. Just due process, down below. The MPs guided Harlow into the Humvee. He didn't resist, didn't speak. Only once. He looked back toward the horizon, a man trying to memorize the place his power had ended. The vehicle rolled forward, tires crunching over gravel, until the sound vanished into the distance. Ward stood at the edge of the tarmac, hands behind her back. The wind caught her hair, lifting it against the sun. The red mark that once crossed her cheek was gone now, replaced by something quieter, conviction. Maybe. Or grief. Keaton approached from behind. You should take the afternoon. Colonel, debrief starts 0600 tomorrow. Ward nodded, still watching the dust trail fade. You ever notice how quiet it gets after the noise ends? Keaton glanced toward the mountains. That's not quiet. Colonel, that's the sound of a system resetting. He handed her a sealed envelope. TDY orders, effective immediately. Ward broke the wax seal, the orders crisp and warm, from his hand. Temporary duty assignment, Operation Mirrorfall, location undisclosed continental U.S. Reporting officer, JTF Glasshouse, Oversight Division. She folded it carefully. Same disease. Keaton's mouth twitched almost a smile. Different host. Across the airfield. Technicians powered down the last generator. The base lights dimmed, one by one. A flag above the command post fluttered, caught the last of the daylight, and stilled. Ward exhaled. He said he enforced discipline. Strauss joined them quietly. That's the excuse they all use, right up until the paperwork outlasts them. Ward gave a faint nod, then looked toward the open hangar doors. Inside, her old insignia sat beside the evidence tag, a small, glinting reminder that titles change faster than accountability. The three officers stood in silence as the convoy reached the perimeter road. Then Keaton's radio hissed once, faint and coded. Mirror fall control. This is Glasshouse Command. Transfer complete. A pause. Then Mirrorfall acknowledges. Authorization confirmed. Keaton turned his gaze toward Ward, but she was already walking toward the helicopter, not rushed, not slow, just measured. The downdraft lifted her coat, scattering fine dust that shimmered in the light like fading static. For a long moment, no one spoke. Then the engines rose again, thunder rolling back across the base. She didn't look back. The door shut, the blades blurred. The helicopter lifted into the burning sky, carrying with it the sound of unfinished truths and the ghosts of every silence that came before.